virtual International Festival of Ideas this year. I'm Elizabeth Nearing, the curator of Ideas Programming. The International Festival of Arts and Ideas is created and produced on the traditional lands of the Mohegan, the Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Schaghticoke, Golden Hill Paugussett, Niantic, and the Quinnipiac in the land we call home, Connecticut. We hope that from wherever you're watching from, you take a moment to acknowledge and honor the Native people whose lands you are on and the history of the place you are in. You can find out more about Native land near you, and we'll put a link in the comments so you can look it up if you want to. This year, our Ideas programming has been created in partnership with fellow organizations, New Haveners, and thought partners of all kinds. I want to thank you all for coming along with us on this journey. We'd love to continue centering your thoughts, questions, and what you're curious about throughout today's conversation. If you have thoughts or questions, ideas, you can share them in the comments, and our conversationalists can respond to them live on air. So we'd love to hear from you. This is a part of our Ideas series, which is centered around democracy, we the people, this year. It's presented in partnership with Connecticut Humanities, the Whitney Center, and media support from Connecticut Public. Activist Songbook is presented with support from New England Foundation for the Arts. And without any further ado, I'd love to welcome our fabulous panelists here from Activist Songbook. Enjoy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jafferis. I'm the lyricist of Activist Songbook, which is a collaboration with Byron Yong, in which we're creating 53 songs and raps to counteract hate and energize movements that are, the songs and raps are inspired by Asian American organizers and activists across the country. And I'm excited to be here with these awesome other humans. Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm Ryan Hudson. I'm a singer-songwriter based here in New Haven. I use he, him pronouns. Good to meet y'all.
Good to meet you. My name is Byron Yong. I'm from Seattle and am now based in San Francisco. And I'm a composer and educator, and I'm working on Activist Songbook with Jafferis.
Hi, my name is Melissa Lee. I am a composer as well as a theater maker. I'm one of the creators of Interstate, and I'm excited to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kit. I use they, she, and he pronouns, and I am a writer. I am dialing in today from Waipahu, Hawaii, my hometown, but otherwise I'm usually in New York.
Welcome, everybody, sort of, to New Haven, virtually. So I'm supposed to be the moderator here. So I'm going to be awkwardly asking questions here and there, and creating moderation. No, radical things. I'm going to be creating the opposite of moderation here. So I just actually, to bring us in, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. I wondered if we'd each want to share a little bit about what we're hoping to get out of this panel, or what we're hoping it will be, or what we're hoping it will be for us or for the people who are watching. Let's go in reverse order. So Kit, do you want to start?
Cool. Yeah. I'm looking forward to having a conversation. There's like a lot in the air right now. There is certainly, a pandemic happening, and a lot of like anti-Asian racism. We're in a moment of anti-Black racism and an actual murder that has happened recently with Ahmaud Arbery. We're just in a moment of like uncertainty and lots of things happening in the world. So I'm excited to be here and to like address sort of like the current moment we're in with a group of folks who are like looking to push that conversation.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to sort of get to know everybody's work. I'm also excited to have a conversation about why we do what we do and create work songwriting as activism, essentially, and why we do that. And then hopefully this conversation will inspire other folks to do more as well.
I resonate with all of the above. I'm so excited to be on this panel with other songwriters, especially songwriters who are addressing and responding to violence and to hate crimes, especially now, but also who have been doing this for a long time, because I feel like there are many things that are long lasting that need to be addressed. And it's just constant practice. And so I'm excited to hear stories of those experiences, of those practices, and hopefully that will inspire. I know it will inspire me, so hopefully it will inspire everyone in the audience as well. Paul.
Yeah, I guess I can echo what's been said. I'm excited to learn about other folks' work, and also I think in like a space of like isolation, social isolation especially, I'm excited to share ideas and just circulate ideas between individuals who believe in the power of songwriting and creativity. And the other piece is I'm excited to, again, to challenge the way songwriting and music making and composition is like traditionally consumed, and I guess in the spirit of community, like as a group, reimagine like the ways we can share that and document these moments we're in.
So I am interested in the ways in which we are currently in these little boxes right here on this screen, and in these bigger boxes in some ways in our the places where we're staying separated from each other, and the ways in which actually right now in this moment radical imagination is like a survival necessity almost, in order for us to exist outside of these little boxes that we spend so much of our lives in now. And so I'm going to encourage people who are watching to help us, those of us who are in this, to break out of the box of this panel, as it were, to put comments in the live comment section at any point, question that emerges from you, even if it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Please do that. Help us imagine outside of what we would otherwise. I think we're going to begin, because this is about songwriting, by sharing a little piece of what me and Byron have been working on with a bunch of amazing New Haven singers and activists, as well as nationally people with both of those titles, and Octopus Theatricals, the Arts and Ideas Festival, amazing music director Stephanie Tubiolo. This is excerpt, or not an excerpt, this is the rally song version of a piece called We Will Break Free, which is based on the true story of Masaru Edmund Nakawatase, who in ways that are connecting to some of the issues that people already brought up of hate crimes and murder. He was born in an internment camp, a Japanese internment camp, concentration camp, prison camp, during World War II, and so has been involved in movements since the Civil Rights Movement, and also in combating the incarceration of folks, especially migrants today. And this version of the song you're going to hear is just a rally song version. So it's just kind of the chorus of that song that's remixed for use on the streets. So Tiffany, if you could share "We Will Break Free," that would be awesome.
Okay, here we go.
Hey.
Boop.
Break.
Break the walls.
Break them all.
Oops. Thanks, Tiffany. So I would love to move into a question that you asked, Melissa. Very simply, why do we do what we do? Why are we involved in songwriting as radical imagination? And I wonder if you would actually want to start answering that question.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I actually started songwriting when I was about 13, 14 years old, and I had come out. I'm a queer woman, and I came out when I was 11. And so when I started, it really came from a place of self-expression. And for me, it was a tool to sort of get, to work out whatever was going on inside of me at that young age. And so the songs were bad. They were not good. They were terrible. But for me, it was just very personal and it was private, and it got me to figure out, who I was. And then I think over time, it was, for me, a platform to address things that were important to me. So when I was it sounds like a cliche, but I listened to a lot of Ani DeFranco when I was a teenager, and how she, used lyrics in such a poetic way, but also to really fight injustices in the world. And I think that really inspired me. So I started writing. I started writing about capitalism. I started writing about racism and, just a lot of issues that were affecting me, homophobia, all of that, just throughout my teens, and really sort of cemented the kind of artist that I was and I wanted to be. And from there, and Kit can talk a little bit more about it, but from there, like my collaboration with Kit and moving songwriting into musical theater, and what telling stories and writing songs in that way can change in terms of our communities, I think was really powerful. And so that's sort of why I do what I do. I don't know, Kit, if you want to add anything there.
Yeah. Similarly to Melissa, I started writing poetry at a very young age, like publishing poems and doing spoken word at like 5, 6, 9. And really loved just like loved art. And at some point I found my way into slam poetry. It was like a full-time slam poet for maybe like a decade or so before working with Melissa and writing musicals and plays together. I feel like our first show, Interstate, it's a semi-autobiographical show, and it's about a time in our lives when we were in our early 20s and we just decided to like quit our jobs and go on tour and find people that look like us. And we went to over 30 states in America, and we connected with like artists, activists, Asian American communities, queer folks like throughout the country. And we were like in conversation with our communities and wanted to share our art and talk about the things we were going through. And after that, we took all of that and we turned it into a musical. And we've been writing this musical for about 8 years now. And I think like at the beginning, we were writing our songs just sort of like based on what it used to be like when we were on the road. We were writing songs about like our anger and our frustrations and our feelings. And then over time, I think those songs became part of the show. And as we processed through that anger and those feelings, the songs became stories. And that's, I think, for us in our journey with this musical and with our collaboration, where things really started to happen. It's like when we were like able to process through our own emotions through writing, and then like turn those songs into pieces that transformed some of that anger and frustration and sadness into like deep personal work. I've always felt like that the personal is very political for us as like queer and transgender artists. And so our songwriting is, sometimes it's like those pieces I was talking about where we're just like processing and writing about like our feelings and emotions. And then sometimes it's, it lives in a story where we sort of fictionalize and combine a bunch of moments together in order to like think about the connective tissue between some of these moments.
I grew up under my great grandmother, who was a really brilliant musician and also a writer. She was just a creative, she was she was born in New Haven, like 1917. Like played piano from the time she was 5 up until a few months before she died. And I think just spending time with her, and not just her, but spending time with like people who were impacted by her, and just growing up under her energy. I feel like I didn't really have. I feel like that's the way the world was introduced to me, through the lens of like expression, right? And I think like songwriting particularly just does a really good job at like, I guess, like crystallizing all these really complex feelings, right? And I think about a lot of the ways that like Black folks especially have struggled. And there's always just like comparison. There's always just like this lofty idea that the struggle is somehow like beautified by the music or by the creation of the art. And while I don't necessarily agree with that wholeheartedly, I agree with like the importance of it, of art, the importance of the art and of the music and of the songwriting, and it also makes it really, songwriting makes it really easy to like share these like experiences and like feelings that otherwise would be trapped in our being, and I feel like that's just the most effective way to like free those things. It's through the act of like writing them through song.
Picking up on what folks have said, the sharing and the through the sharing, there is that freeing and transformation. And what I've been thinking about a lot is how direct songs that work are, and yet also how they can contain so many nuances and emotions, and because they ultimately come from such painful places. And I was singing from a very young age, and I actually didn't set text to English for 8 years. And so coming back to setting text in English, because I know there's a directness there in being able to understand language through music. And I think a lot of that was me hiding my own queer identity and other things that were part of my life that I didn't want to share. And music is an abstract. It's very easy to get lost in music. And so songs are actually that really challenging place where you can directly reach someone with both the lyric, the text, and the music.
Thank you all. I'm curious about like taking that where you left off, Byron, in terms of really directly affecting someone. Folks brought up this particular moment, responding to violence, to hate crimes, in particular, Kit mentioned anti-Asian violence and anti-Black violence that's happening, and the atmosphere in this country that is, that might foment that. And so I know that there's lots of ways of addressing that. Why through song? Like if we're thinking specifically about addressing violence, why do that through song? And what are the things that song can do in addressing violence or hate crimes that other forms of protest or action or legislation cannot, and where are songs limited? I don't know. I saw you nodding your head, Paul. Do you want to start this one?
Oh, gee, thanks. I haven't really formed the idea, but I'll just like start with thinking what I was thinking. I don't know the limits of songwriting, and I've never given it thought. I don't know if there are. I don't know if there's anything a song can't do or contribute to at the very least. But for me, just in my experience, there's something. There's like there are properties to experiencing songs rooted in liberation that help folks like metabolize experiences and traumatic experiences, especially. And and the other thing, and I was kind of hinting at this earlier, and I've been trying to tease it out on my own, but there's this really meaningful link that songwriting creates between your like inner being and the world, that I just feel like otherwise just wouldn't exist. And I mean this for the folks who write the songs, and but also maybe even more so for the folks who experience the songs and relate to them. You know what I mean? There's this feeling of connectedness and like validation that that I experience in my favorite songs, especially the ones that that speak to ideas and even traumatic ideas that sit close to my identity.
Here, I'm going to jump off of that. I think the only failing of music is when it is not included in organizing and activism. I remember after 9/11, I so needed to hear music. And there was a clip of Congress trying to sing together and they couldn't. And I thought, oh, maybe that is why politics is failing this country. And luckily I found places, an interfaith church where my friend was singing. And then I also went to other places where people were singing, because that brought people together, and there was a power, and there was a feeling of groundedness and a feeling of, yeah, we're going to get through this because we have voices, and we can move our bodies, and we can re-center ourselves. And so, yeah, it's only when it's missing that then there's a problem.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I also think something that Paul was saying, that, you know, I also don't know the limits of songwriting. I don't know, I can't even say, I can't even say that I think like songwriting is like the best medium in any way. I think there are lots of mediums that you can be activist in. You know, dance is like so in your body. There's like, you know, film, I feel like is so accessible. There's like so many different mediums that you can really get your message across and really do community building around. I do think there is something about song where it lives inside you, right? It's like, it's something that everyone can do. When you sing a song, when you hear a song, you like absorb it. You can hold it inside you when you sleep, when you know, you don't even need a device to like have a song playing in your head. So I do think there's something like really soulful and in your body about songwriting. But by no means do I think that songwriting is like the only way to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I totally echo what you said, Melissa, about like songs like living in your body and non-verbal communication. I think there are lots of folks out there who are like non-verbal communicators through song. Music touches them in a different way. And I really think that our work is only possible in conversation with all of the other mediums and like activist work, academic work, and political work going on out there. Like in isolation, we're not really doing much. But like as a community, there are lots of people doing this work. And a piece of art or like a song or a musical or a play really is only one small part of that like big chain. And sometimes like maybe it kicks off a feeling in someone. I feel like for me, like a song or a piece of art may spark a feeling and I don't have words for it. And then I see a lecture or I read a book and I'm like, oh, this person's giving me some you know, something to chew on. And then maybe I'll watch like a piece of film and like a piece of music in there will like come and bring me full circle back to the feeling. And, you know, we're really just like one small part of a whole chain of movement. But there is something really beautiful in like, I think for us as like songwriters and lyricists and composers, that when we make something and we release that into the world, then you don't have control of that anymore. Like the person on the other end is going to just take that and do with it what they will and have their own unique experience of it based on where they are in their lives in that moment. And that's something I've always like loved about making art, is like the relationship and the unique experience of it.
Kit, I liked what you were saying about the effectiveness of our songs really being dependent on all the other things that it might be connected to, like on the organizing or whatever activism is happening around it, or you know, that might be the center. And so I'm curious. The theme of the Arts and Ideas Festival this year is democracy, and whatever that means to to each of us here. And so I'm curious for each of you, what do you think? What is the relationship between songwriting as radical imagination and democracy? Is there any relationship, or even between, you know, your work and the idea of democracy?
I'll pick this up and go in reverse order. You know,
And
I'm really
not everyone has to answer every question, so don't feel if you're like, I don't have nothing to say about democracy. That's also fine. Go ahead, Kate. Sorry.
Cool. Yeah, I'm really not an expert on democracy, but I think for me, my experience of democracy, or like the ideology, is of like giving everyone a voice, or multiple people, or all people involved a voice. And I think like the idea is great, and the execution, you know, to a lot of degrees, like that doesn't work in many countries, this one included. And so I guess for like, when I think about like the connectivity between like democracy and our process of writing, Melissa and I are like super collaborative in how we write together, and then when we develop, how we solicit and include feedback. And so I don't recommend this for all artists because it may not work for you, but we do solicit feedback from everyone, and it may not all go to us. But I do, like, it may like go through a dramaturg or a director first, or an artistic person before it ever gets to us. But I do think it's important for people to feel heard and for people to feel seen. Particularly, our work reaches queer and trans folks of color, it reaches women, it reaches non-binary folks. Those are the folks who are generally in our audiences, and who resonate, and who are our characters. Even though they may not be the only folks in our audiences, they're definitely the folks on our stages. And so it feels important for us to like put those voices and stories on stage, to be a part of the larger conversation that like democratizes having a voice, or being seen in this world.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, Kit. And I don't have much to say about democracy, or, you know, whatever our own failing democracy currently. Like, I don't have much to say about that. I think the term in itself just makes me think of all the things that are wrong currently with American society. But I do think, Kit, I think what you're pointing to in terms of our work and the way we do our work is like accountability, and it's accountability to the people that watch our work, the accountability to the people that we are writing the work for, and that to really make room to have conversations with our audiences. And I think that's really important as an artist. I don't think that as an artist you should go out into the world and put things into the world and be like, well, you know, this is just what I want to say, and I don't care how anyone feels or thinks about it. So I do think that's really important.
I'll say this. I also don't have a whole lot to say about the correlation between songwriting and democracy, but I do think like songwriting and music making do a really good job of like grounding communities, right? That have been failed by like a democratic idea. You know what I mean? And I think I don't know. I feel like in the world we exist in, there are plenty of communities of people and so many kinds of folks who are systemically and institutionally oppressed and not heard, even in a democratic system of government like ours. And I love the prospect, or I love the idea of art and creativity being the thing that kind of like highlights that inequity and that inaccessibility to like freedoms. And I don't think there's I mean, I don't know of a better way to highlight those things that even a democratic governmental system doesn't have the capacity to highlight or address.
We have a bunch of awesome questions that have been coming in from folks who are watching, and also I'm really excited that that we're gonna hear a little bit more of an actual song in a moment. So yeah, I think maybe we'll take one question, I think, which just popped up onto our screen here, and then we'll maybe hear a song from Melissa that will kind of take us into the more of the realm of questions from those who are watching. So yeah, this question of what are the major movements right now that are inspiring a new wave of activist songs? Anyone know?
Yeah, there's so I consider this like a wave of activism. It's I guess I don't know what to call it, but I think it's the like commitment to rest for freedom fighters and activists. And I really I really been enjoying music, new music especially, that like centers the importance of healing and rejuvenation and rest for people who fought for so long. One my favorite is called Heal and Chill by Harriet, which is just fire, bro. And it's almost like it almost lulls you to a place, and every time I listen to it, probably once a day at least, it like refreshes and regrounds me and reminds me that I need to like heal, chill, and then try again tomorrow. You know?
I love that, Heal and Chill. I'm gonna look that up for sure. You know, I think that our communities, like communities of color, queer folks, trans folks, women, marginalized folks, there isn't a new movement for us. Like, we have like always been here, and we have always been making art about ourselves and our communities and our families and our feelings and our rights particularly. And so you know, there are new technologies, I think, that are making it easier for us to see each other. There are like more opportunities for folks to like be heard, and then there is maybe even more injustice that is like in the news and the media lately. Like, I think we're just seeing more, but hate crimes and discrimination, these things have been there. But I think maybe now we just are like able to like have access to a lot of that, more access to seeing that and witnessing that. I was watching last night the new PBS documentary about Asians in America. I got through episode 1, and it did like it really connected a lot of things for me in terms of like, you know, right now we're in a moment of a lot of these sort of like hate crimes and anti-Black and anti-Asian racism, and much more than that, deportations, incarceration. It's really big, the sort of injustices that are in our society. But watching that documentary made me sort of like ask myself, like, what has come before? There were so many stories I'd never heard of, you know, and I think even a documentary like that can't include everything, but I did I watched that and I really felt like, oh, what are the things that people have been doing throughout time?
Yeah, and you said something, Kit, that was interesting too. I totally agree that people have been doing this for forever. In terms of the movements, I do think you said something about like there's new mediums and formats, and something that just popped up to me is this new generation of like TikTok users, these teens. I'm in my 30s, so I'm like way too old for TikTok, but I do know, these teens are doing such interesting things on that platform, and almost everything that I've seen has music in it. It actually is almost inseparable from that particular medium, and I also see a ton of activism on there too, and how young people now are able to really speak up about a lot of these injustices and issues through that platform. So that's something that popped out to me.
So, Melissa, would you be down to share a song with us?
Sure. I didn't know if Byron, did you have anything to add? I didn't want to cut you off or take up too much. Okay. Yeah, sure. I could do that. Kit, do you want to give a little background while I set up my guitar?
Yeah. So we're going to play a song called Why I Share from our musical Interstate. And I talked a little bit about this before, but Interstate is a semi-autobiographical musical about a transgender spoken word artist and a lesbian singer-songwriter who go on tour across the country and share their music and art and activism with folks in different communities. Along the way, their music inspires and touches Henry, a transgender South Asian teenager in Kentucky who listens to their music and decides to go to a show of theirs. And it helps him discover some parts of his identity. In this moment, I guess I'll throw it back to you, Melissa, to set up the song.
Sure. In this moment, Henry had started taking tea, and his family discovers it, and that's what the song is sort of about. It's really about why he chooses to share his story on a blog. Small town kid with light brown skin in a locked room every night. An album plays and the kid just lays in bed, his eyes shut tight. A voice comes through, robust and deep, and like a man who found his way, saying everything's alright. His mom walks in as he wipes his skin, getting ready to inject. She's shocked to find all the tools that bind his heart inside his chest. And she breaks down into a sobbing heap, and she's desperate to reflect, saying, what did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong? Father can't know, mother pleads. Think about what father needs, and no one cares to listen. No one here can hear me. That's why I share. That's why I share my life into a scream. Between her tears, she confronts her fears of what her daughter has become. You may try till the day I die, but you'll never be my son. Bags up his things, recites a prayer, and burns a saving grace, thinking this can be undone. Mistakes can be undone. Father can't know, mother pleads. She destroys what her son needs, and no one cares to listen. No one here can hear me. That's why I share. That's why I share life with you. Come on, God. I'm running out of time. How long does it take the tea to take effect? This song's the only thing standing between me and the rope around my neck. Hell-bent on shutting me down. I'll use your cash to get out of town. If only I could beat them. If only I could meet them, I would find my way. Oh, Father, can't know my heart bleeds. No one cares what this boy needs, and no one cares to listen. No one here can hear me. That's why I share. That's why I share my life into a scream. That's it.
Can we just end the where thank you so much for that. So okay, so sorry, you just like took words away. I guess to lead into audience questions, I had one more question that was kind of lingering for me, that the frame, the setup that you gave for this song made me think maybe there might be a resonance. So Activist Songbook centers Asian American organizing and stories, and then we're doing this in a place in New Haven where there's not as much explicitly Asian American collective organizing as there was in places like Philadelphia and the Bay Area, where we started, and so I'm curious if y'all have thoughts, and I think for your show, I wonder if like you talked about, touring the country to different places, and I wonder if anyone would want to speak about what this asks of the radical imagination to bring, for example, a song or a show that is centering a trans story to a place where those stories are not often centered in people's, in like the general consciousness, or the equivalent in the case of Activist Songbook in New Haven, Asian American stories. Any of y'all have any thoughts about what that asks of the radical imagination in those places?
I'd say like we went, most places we went to did not have like a huge group of organizing or activism around like queer and trans Asian Americans, or either. But what felt really important for us, and even now in our art making, is that the work reaches those who want to receive it. And so for us, when we were out on the road, it didn't matter. Sometimes we performed for like a couple thousand people in a stadium, or like hundreds of thousands of people in a pride march, or like a pride. But sometimes we performed for 5 people in an LGBT center, and sometimes we performed for 10 people in a queer youth cafe, and all of those felt really important to us. And so it it seems that for us, it feels like that as like the act of continuing to be in conversation with our community is the most important thing, regardless of who comes or how many people are there. It also feels really important for us that like to keep that commitment, because we don't know what will happen afterwards. Like what happens after we have done the show, the conversations that happen, like the really like enthusiastic two people that decide that they're gonna start an open mic or create a group, like that's the kind of work that is really important. But that can only happen if we continue to keep doing what we do, and to like sort of like decentralize the shiniest type of stuff. And yeah, I don't know, Melissa, what your experience was or is.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I don't really have a whole lot to add to that, but yeah, like I agree with you that like all of these different audiences are important. So I don't know, Paul or Byron, if you have anything.
So if no one else has something for that, I'm happy to bring in some audience questions, and I think what I'm going to do is share a few of them at once, and then y'all can pick one to respond to. So there's one question. What do you see as the difference between there we go. Thank you. Performance incorporating music that speaks to issues needing to be addressed versus music conceived as a way of bringing a group of protesters together through song? That's one question. Oh, and then there was another. What do you think is the most effective activist song of all time, and what makes it effective? So yeah, thinking about effectivity. And then I think actually this question of what's the goal of the song? Are you looking to raise awareness, a call to action, or just get something off your chest, is kind of related to Sarah's question about the difference between speaking to issues versus bringing people together. So I think that's still kind of two questions. So why don't we start with those two, and I'll see if there's another thing.
I'll go ahead and jump in. Songs have many functions, and like what Kit pointed out earlier, you release the song into the world, and the performer or the listener may have a totally different response, and they may use the song to fit their own needs, right? And so the song function changes. I think I'm gonna actually use the Activist Songbook as an example, because as we were interviewing people to try and figure out how they've stayed energized within these movements, one realization that happened is that music is both a solitary activity and a group activity. And so the function necessarily may shift because of that, even though the topic or the theme or the reasons that the song is given comes to life may be the same. And so with that in mind, Activist Songbook has a narrative component, right, which is a longer song, which is pre-rehearsed, which can be for someone's self-care, a singer singing to themselves. And then there's a rally song version, like We Will Break Free, which we shared earlier, which is an ensemble song, which is meant to be taught to a group of people outdoors to be used right away in a rally. And so, and of course, there are many more functions. There are many more ways to create songs and have them have them be useful. But those were some thoughts I was thinking as I saw these three questions.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think I've been thinking about like what the most effective like activist or protest songs are, and also I'll kind of like blend that with another question. I can't necessarily find it, but I love I love like Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On," and like sure it's a great song. The structure is classic, right? There have been many songs that have like been written with that same composition structure, verse chorus bridge, verse chorus bridge. But I feel like it's such a like the idea of the song is so basic and so core. And I feel like it's the kind of song that kind of writes itself, and because of that, but I guess the thing I really want to say is that it's the kind of song that like that resurfaces and like renews itself, right, generation by generation, and like there's so many like historical links like to a song like that. Whenever a thing happens that impacts all of us, and it kind of causes like this like universal chaos, or to me it's one of the few songs that kind of rise to the surface of all of our consciousness, and it really has the ability to like characterize or capture the thing that we're experiencing. And I think it was a selfishly written song. Like I feel as though it was written for an individual, right? And I think there's a lot of beauty in that around what makes a song, what makes a good protest song versus a song that's written for a person's like creative expression, right? So yeah.
I keep thinking about your Paul, something you said at the beginning of this conversation about like a song written for like taking some time off and self-care, and like I think in terms of like activist songs or protest songs or songs that are going to have care in like an activist community, there's so many, and the effectiveness of each one is so different given like who writes it and who receives it and why. And so I definitely feel like, yeah, I'm not like an expert on protest songs, but there probably can be a whole separate panel about people who do that. But I do feel, and I'd like to think some of us here have more expertise than I do on protest songs and songs for that kind of radical change. Though I do know that like different songs do radically change people's hearts and minds in different ways, and in small ways. Those are just as important. I do feel like there are some songs that I would like to see out in the world, like songs that are like, here's how I'm giving away my power and privilege, or like songs that like songs that are like, here's here's how I'm like stepping back, or here's how I'm like, maybe a song that's just like 5 minutes of silence. That might be good. But like I think there's like definitely like different songs speak to different people. And actually I have a friend who I have often been in spaces with, Orion Johnstone, who does a lot of like singing and collective song making and writing. And I didn't actually like think that was my thing until another queer and trans person was leading a song like space. And so I think that's important too. Like, who is the person leading that song making and creativity? And if it's like, I guess I probably didn't feel like it was for me until someone with an identity that I really resonated with, like, invited me into the space. So, which is, I think, something important that you were like pointing towards, Paul, in terms of like a song written like a by us for us kind of song or space that felt really, it feels important to have that as well.
I'll add on to what Kit was saying. Is like I feel I feel like a lot of I feel the pressure around like the quality of songs being determined by like its palatability to like a white normative society, right? And like and there's so many songs and songwriters who are like really intentional about writing to their own experiences, and I feel like that's it's like it's really beautiful. And I realize it's not a new thing. By any means, but I really appreciate over the last like few years anyway, the way musicians and songwriters have been able to like create careers and lives around like writing in like absolute truth, like unapologetic truth, and it's dope to me. But while also like reaching the people it's for, and inspiring those people and like their success being made of that, that being made of that like contact.
Yeah, I totally am feeling like that. The more specific, the more universal, because like the more specific, the more humanizing as well. I think when people are like writing songs and people are creating and people are trying to connect with each other.
So we are just about at time, but I would love to give each of us a chance to say or sing or dance one more thing, and I guess so. So I'll start to give you all time to think about what you might want to say. I was really struck by things that so many of y'all were saying about the way in which radical imagining is like transforms ourselves. Like in some ways, how we can, like you talked about metabolizing traumatic experiences, Paul, and in self and others, and I had an experience in writing Activist Songbook where I was writing something based on an interview with Jania Fu, one of the organizers in New Haven, who we talked to about abolition, abolition of prisons and abolition of police, which is something that I was like, all right, like that's good for you over there. That's kind of scary to me. And literally in the process of writing this song based on her interview, I like it transformed me. I mean, it transformed my relationship to the idea of abolition. And so I'm excited for this relates to a question that was asked about in the comments about how songs transform potentially the singer or the performer. I think that feels like the creator and then the singer and the performer. That feels like the most fundamental places where this radical imagination can happen and connects to one of the kind of fundamental quotes that began Activist Songbook, which was the Grace Lee Boggs saying, change yourself to change the world. Anyone else have something they want to close with?
Should we go down the line, I guess? I just wanted to thank y'all for sharing. Melissa, first of all, thanks for sharing your song with us, which was just so dope. And did a thing. I think it did a thing for the conversation, and I don't want it to end. And just thank y'all for being so vulnerable and sharing those things with us.
Thanks so much for saying that, Paul. I really appreciate it. And same here. I'm so glad to have gotten to meet all of you and to have this conversation. And yeah, I feel so energized and and I'm just glad to have this moment and share this space with all of you.
One word I'm taking from this is invitation that Kit mentioned. Because so often, yeah, there are musics, there are songs, there are different types of activities that exist, and yet I know I haven't felt invited to spaces or events until somehow there is someone who is on the stage or part of the organizing that is that I feel simpatico with. And so thank you for that. I think a lot of the things that are resonating in terms of democracy and imagination and radicalism is because and not resonating because that invitation has not been there. So let's figure out ways to invite.
Thanks so much for saying that, Byron, and totally echoing that and echoing everyone's and gratitude for this space and for all the incredible like artistry and ideas shared today. I'm sort of leaving this space, glad to have processed through and opened up a conversation about what we can do as artists and songwriters and song makers, and hoping that more comes out of it, hoping that more voices and more people share what's in their like hearts and minds through art and song.
Thanks, y'all. It's been such a blessing to be in this space with you, and also a blessing to be in this space with all of you live commenters and audience out there. If you want to get involved in some of the things that we're talking about, Activist Songbook, the virtual choir that you saw at the start, we're doing a series of those between now and the end of June. And so you can just email activistsongbook@gmail.com to be in the choir. And that's one way. And there's many others. Thank you for being with us.
I had to unmute my mic, everybody. Hello. Thank you so much for everything, for being with us, for commenting and questioning and being curious. This is the first of a whole series of ideas events. I hope a lot of y'all will come on back tomorrow night. We are excited and delighted to have the one and only Stephanie Burt as a part of our NEA Big Read program with partners all across New Haven. That'll be tomorrow, same time, same place, 7 o'clock. And then I also just wanted to make a quick shout out to our partners at the New Haven Symphony Orchestra who are doing a songwriting contest right now. So if any of y'all are like, I have a song, I'm going to write something, check that out too and let your voice be heard. Thank you, everybody.